It is 2 o'clock in the afternoon. Step into your bedroom right now and feel it. The air has not moved since morning. It sits on your skin like a wet blanket. The fan in the corner is just pushing the same hot air in a circle. You have closed the curtains. You have done everything they told you. And still the room holds the heat like a clay oven holds a fire long after the flame is out. Somewhere in your house a machine is humming, eating money off your wall every single hour, and the room you sleep in is still too hot to lie down in. I want to show you something today that costs about $5, takes 15 minutes to put together, and uses no electricity at all. Not 1 watt. It runs on water and moving air, the two things the earth has given freely since the beginning of the world. And it will cool the room you sleep in, not with a machine, not with a bill, but the way my mother cooled our home, and her mother cooled hers. In a land where the sun is a hard master, and there has never been a cool wind that came out of a wall. My name is Nasirian. I am Samburu. I have lived my whole life in the dry lands of northern Kenya, where for half the year the heat presses down on the ground until even the cattle stand still and refuse to walk in the middle of the day. We have no air conditioners. We never have. But our homes stay cool enough to rest in, to keep a baby calm in, to sleep in at night. And the trick that does it is older than any machine, and it is so simple that once I show you, you will wonder why no one ever told you. There is a reason no one told you, and I will be honest with you about that too, near the end. But first, let me show you the thing itself, exactly how to build it, where it works, and, this matters, where it does not. Because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. Stay with me. Let me start with why this works, because if you understand the why, you will never forget the how, and you will be able to build it out of whatever you have lying around. The whole secret is one word: evaporation. And you already know it in your own body, you just never thought about it. When you work hard and you sweat, and then a little wind moves across your skin, you feel suddenly cool, cooler than the air around you. Why? Because water cannot turn from wet into vapor without taking heat along with it as it leaves. It is the nature of water. When that sweat dries off your skin, it carries away some of your body's heat in the going. The wind did not bring cold air from anywhere. The water made the cold, right there on your arm, by drying away. That is the whole trick. Move air across a wet surface, and the air comes out the other side cooler than it went in because it left some of its heat behind in the water it dried off. My grandmother knew this without any book. On the worst afternoons, she would hang a wet cloth in the doorway of our home, where the small breeze came through, and the air that passed into the house came through that wet cloth and arrived cooler on the other side. She set water to seep slowly down the shaded outside wall. She knew that wet plus moving air equals cool, and she knew it so deep in her bones that she never once called it science. She just called it keeping the children comfortable. Now here is where my people add the part that makes it stronger. And it is the part you will not have at home, but you can buy it for a few dollars. It is the clay pot. Walk into any Samburu or Turkana home and you will find clay and gourd vessels holding water. They are not just for carrying. A pot made of plain unglazed clay, rough clay, fired but not painted, not sealed, not shiny, is a porous thing. It is full of tiny holes you cannot see. When you fill it with water and leave it standing, the water slowly seeps through those tiny holes to the outside of the pot. And there, on the whole outer surface, it evaporates into the air. Put your hand on the side of such a pot on a hot day and it is cool. Cool and a little damp, even though no water is running down it. That is the water leaving, and every drop that leaves takes a little heat with it, and the pot, and the air right around the pot, get cooler. A whole pot is one big wet surface, sweating gently all day long, cooling the air that drifts past it. This is the same reason the water inside such a pot stays cool and sweet to drink, even when the sun is high. The pot is cooling itself, all day, for free, using nothing but the water it holds. We have used this for as long as anyone can remember to keep drinking water cool and to keep milk from turning in the heat. The English have a fine word for the porous, unglazed clay. Terracotta, and you can buy a plain terracotta pot at any garden shop for a few dollars. Plain, unglazed, not the shiny painted kind. The rough, plain, thirsty kind. That is the one. So now you have the two pieces of the puzzle. You have evaporation, which makes the cool, and you have a humble clay pot and a wet cloth, which give you a wide, slow, steady wet surface for the air to pass across. Put them together at the right spot, and you have a cooler that runs on water and wind. Here is the build, and I promise you it is as simple as I say. You will need 3 things. First, one plain unglazed terracotta pot. The bigger across the mouth, the better, because you want a wide surface. $2 to $4. Second, a length of plain cotton cloth, an old bed sheet, an old cotton shirt, a strip of any cotton you have. It must be cotton, because cotton drinks water and holds it. The slippery man-made cloths shed water and will not work. Third, clean water. That is all. A pot, a cloth, water. $5 at the very most, and most of you will spend less because you already have the cloth. Now you build it. Fill the terracotta pot most of the way with clean water, and set it on a tray or a plate, because it will sweat and you do not want a wet floor. Take your cotton cloth and lay one end down into the water so it can drink, and drape the rest of the cloth up and over the rim and down the outside of the pot, like a shawl hanging off the shoulder. The cloth will slowly pull water up out of the pot and stay wet all along its length, all on its own. The same way a lamp wick pulls up oil. You do not have to do anything. The cloth drinks, the pot sweats, and now you have a large, tall, wet surface standing in the room. Wet the whole cloth down where the first time so it does not have to start from dry. Now it is working, but where you put it is everything, so listen close to this next part, because this is the part most people get wrong. And getting it wrong is the difference between a cooler and a damp pot doing nothing in the corner. You must place it where the air comes into the room, the open window where a breeze comes through, the doorway, the gap where outside air moves in. You set your wet pot and cloth right there, in the path of the moving air, so that every bit of air entering the room has to pass across that wet cloth before it reaches you. A pot sitting in the dead center of the room on a table does almost nothing. The cool, damp air just settles around it and sits there, and you never feel it from across the room. But set it at the window, in the path of the breeze, and now every breath of air coming into your room is cooled on its way through, and it spreads across the whole room as it enters. That is the difference between a curiosity and a system. If you have even a small breeze through the window, that will carry it. If you have no breeze at all, then a small ordinary fan placed to blow gently through the wet cloth, from the cloth toward you, will do the work of the wind, and it will make the whole thing far stronger. The fan alone only moves hot air. The fan blowing through the wet cloth delivers cooled air. That little fan is the only electricity in the whole business, and you do not even need it if you have a window that breathes. A good cross breeze does the job on its own, with no power at all. That is the whole build. A clay pot, a cotton cloth, water, set at the window where the air comes in. $5, 15 minutes, no bill, ever. Now this is the part where I see foolish people oversell, and I will not, because honest is worth more than impressive. Evaporation cooling has one partner it depends on, and that partner is dry air. Here is why. The air can only cool by drying off your wet cloth if the air has room left in it to take on more water. In a dry heat, the dry inland summers, the desert states, the high plains, the kind of dry baking heat we have where I live, the air is thirsty. It pulls the water off that cloth fast and hard, and you get a real satisfying drop, several degrees, enough to feel plainly the moment you walk past it. In dry country, this works beautifully, and I am not exaggerating when I say it can change a room. But in a wet, sticky, humid heat, the kind they have down along the coasts, in the deep, humid south, where the air is already half full of water on a bad day, the air has little room to take on more, so it cannot dry off much of your cloth, and the cooling is gentler. A couple of degrees, maybe, not a dramatic plunge. So let me set your expectation honestly. If your heat is a dry heat, this will cool your room noticeably, and you will be glad of it every day. If your heat is a wet, sticky, swampy heat, the cooling is modest. I am not going to tell you a $5 clay pot will cool a sealed house like a machine in a swampy August, because it will not, and anybody who tells you so is selling you something. Know what it is for, and it will serve you well. That is the truth, and the truth is better than a clever promise. And there is one honest point about this I will not skip, because it matters in a humid place. This cooler works by adding a little moisture to the air as it cools it. In a dry room, that is welcome. The air is harsh and dry anyway, and a little moisture is kind to your nose and your skin. But you must not seal this up in a small, closed, already humid room with no air moving through and leave it for days, because then you are only adding damp to damp. And damp still air is the friend of mold and is not good to breathe. The rule is simple, and it is the same rule that makes the whole thing work in the first place. This is for spaces with air moving through them. Open window, open door, a cross breeze. Keep the air moving, which you want for the cooling anyway, and you are doing it right and you are safe. Never a sealed, shut, stuffy little room with the door closed for days. Moving air, always. And one word on upkeep, because it is part of the honest truth of the thing. The pot will need topping up with water, it sweats its water away, which is the whole point, so check it each morning and pour it full again. 30 seconds. And every week or two, wash the cloth, because a cloth that is used over and over can go sour. A clean cotton cloth, a full pot of water each morning, and this thing will cool your room all summer, every summer, for as long as the pot lasts. And a clay pot lasts years. Let me tell you where this shines, because it is not in cooling your whole house on the very hottest hour of the year. I have been honest about that. Where it earns its keep is the one room that never gets a breeze. The back bedroom, the room over the garage, the child's room that bakes in the afternoon sun, the room where the old grandmother sits, the room where the baby must sleep. The places a big central machine struggles to reach, and where you would never want to run a loud unit all night anyway. You set the wet pot at that room's window in the cool of evening, with a small fan if you have one, and you bring that one room down to a place where a person can rest. For a child who cannot sleep in the heat, that is not a small thing. And here is a gift on top of it, because the very same clay pot does a second job. Stand a smaller pot inside a larger one, pack wet sand in the space between them, and set your vegetables or your fruit in the inner pot with a damp cloth over the top. The water in the sand evaporates through the outer pot, and the inside stays cool. Cool enough to keep greens crisp and fruit fresh for days with no refrigerator at all. We have kept food this way in the heat for generations. So the same few dollars of clay gives you a cooler for your room and a cool box for your food, both running on nothing but water and air. Now I want to say the part that is bigger than a clay pot, and I will say it plainly. Think about what you are sold to cool your air. A machine that runs all summer, every summer, and bills you for every hour on your electric meter. A machine that wants a repairman when it fails in the hottest week. A machine somebody sells you once and then feeds on for the rest of its life. Each one is a fine machine, I will not pretend they are not. But each one is also a thing that bills you, month after month, season after season. And here is the quiet truth. There is no money in a clay pot. Nobody can sell you a monthly bill for a pot you fill from your own tap. Nobody can put a brand on a breeze through your window. Nobody grows rich from an old cotton cloth. That is the only reason you have not heard of this. Not because it does not work, because it works, it has cooled my people through heat that would frighten a city person. But because quiet, simple things that ask no one's permission do not make anyone rich, so no one stands up to shout about them. The expensive thing shouts. The $5 thing just sits at the window and works. A person who can cool the room where their family sleeps with a pot of water and the wind through the window is a person who needs to ask no one and owe no one. That is the whole of it. That is what my people have always had. Not because we were clever, but because we had no choice. And the things you keep when you have no choice are the things that never fail you and never bill you. So here is what I want you to do this week. Get yourself one plain, unglazed terracotta pot. The rough kind, not the shiny painted kind. And a piece of old cotton cloth. Fill the pot, drape the wet cloth over it, and set it right in the window where your breeze comes in, not in the middle of the room. Keep the air moving through it. Fill it each morning. And if the heat where you live is a dry heat, prepare to be surprised. Then tell me in the comments below, where do you live and what kind of drop did you feel? I have told you to expect it strong in the dry places and gentle in the humid ones. And I want to hear what you find in your own home, in your own heat. I read every single one. What you all send back from your own places is the reason I keep doing this. And next time, since I have shown you the clay pot, I am going to show you the whole of how my people keep food fresh through the worst heat with no machine at all. The cool box made of 2 pots and wet sand, and 3 other things my grandmother kept in her home that never once saw electricity and never once let the food spoil. It is the natural next step after today. Until then, Keep the air moving. Let the water and the clay do the work. And remember, the people who lived in the heat long before the machines knew things we are only just beginning to remember.